You've probably heard someone say, the silence of the night is safer than the movement of the day. But what if I told you that it's in the dead of night, when everything seems calm, that the most disturbing things happen? I'm not talking about robberies or break-ins. I'm talking about things that can't be explained by logic. Stories of ordinary people who, because of their jobs, have witnessed things even the most skeptical person couldn't ignore. Night guards, used to solitude and routine, swear there's a side of the night no one wants to see. And believe me, it's not just superstition or idle gossip. These are real accounts, lived in silence, filled with details that will haunt your imagination. You'll hear doors lock on their own, voices whisper out of nowhere, and even reflections that seem to have a life of their own. What you're about to hear isn't a collection of urban legends. These are experiences that happened right here, in the real world, in places you've probably walked through yourself. The only question is, after hearing these stories, will you ever see the midnight hours the same way again? There was something in the silence of that commercial building that couldn't be explained by the echo of its walls alone. Anyone who's been alone in a place like that knows what I mean. Every sound takes on a life of its own. The guard used to say that at night the building breathed, as if it were alive, exhaling long sighs down the corridors. It's the kind of detail only those who live the night notice. A heightened sensitivity that turns every creak into a warning, every shadow into a possible visitor. One of those nights, the mechanical sound of the elevator shattered the stillness like a muffled scream. It went up, down, stopped, opened its doors, and no one entered or exited. On the security cameras, there was nothing but a blurred motion, impossible to identify. It's like when you're walking down the street and you swear you feel someone beside you. But when you turn, there's nothing there. Just a cold shiver crawling up your spine, urging you to walk faster. The guard tried to explain it away. Maybe an electrical fault, the wind, automatic programming. But why then, with every door opening, did he feel the air grow heavier, as if he were sharing the space with something unseen? That sensation of a presence that can't be seen stayed with him. And what he would witness later at a hospital where he worked months later would make that elevator seem like nothing more than a distant whisper. Hospitals carry their own weight, even in daylight. But at night, especially in empty wings, the silence seems to grow dense. The guard on duty during the renovation described the feeling as a weight on your chest that makes you breathe shorter, as if the air itself were thick with untold stories. Anyone who's walked down a hospital corridor at night knows it's not just the absence of sound. It's as if the walls themselves are holding back secrets they'd rather not reveal. That night, the echo of soft footsteps caught his attention. It wasn't the metallic clang of construction, nor the scrape of tools. They were human footsteps, steady, unhurried. He followed the sound into the closed-off corridor where dust and darkness created a scene straight out of a horror film. The dim beam of his flashlight barely cut through the black, and ahead he saw a figure slowly moving away, never turning its head. When he reached the end of the hallway, nothing. Only footprints in the dust, stopping abruptly in the middle of nowhere. He stood frozen, trying to reason with what he saw, but the only thing he was sure of was the chill that told him to leave. And perhaps later, in the silence of an abandoned industrial warehouse, he would learn that some presences don't need a body to make themselves heard. Abandoned warehouses have a strange way of staying alive. The wind slips through cracks, making the metal structures sing, and every creak seems to come from a different corner. The guard was used to this improvised symphony of the night, but that night, one sound stood out. A radio, an old one, hissing somewhere down the corridor. At first, it seemed like nothing more than interference, but there was something else. Something that almost sounded like words. He approached slowly, each step echoing in the emptiness, until the static transformed into whispers. That's when he realized The voice was repeating his name. It wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't some radio error. It was clear, direct, and personal, like someone was only a few feet away, speaking from inside the radio itself. His spine turned cold, and against his own will, he leaned in, trying to understand what it was saying. Heart racing, he opened the radio, looking for the source of the sound. What he found made no sense. There were no batteries. The device was completely dead. He set it back down, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave. That same feeling would return days later, in the emptiness of a school where even the walls seemed to keep their own secrets. Empty schools have a different kind of silence, almost suffocating. Without laughter, hurried footsteps, or voices in the halls, everything feels suspended in time. During vacation breaks, the guards' routine was simple: rounds through a sleeping building. But that night, something broke the monotony. The sound of footsteps echoing down the main corridor, firm, slow, like someone choosing exactly where to step. He followed the sound to a classroom at the far end. The door was locked from the inside, which was strange. No one should have been there. He knocked, called out, nothing. When he finally forced it open, what he saw made his stomach tighten. The desks and chairs weren't in the same arrangement as the day before. It looked like someone had moved them all around, but in no logical way, almost like a twisted game whose rules he didn't understand. He tried to convince himself it was some prank by a staff member, but deep down, he knew better. And days later, he would see something far more disturbing, a reflection in a window that didn't belong to anyone alive. Residential buildings at night are usually calm, almost sleepy. But for a vigilant guard, every shadow is a reason to pay attention. That night, during his rounds, he passed by one of the large entrance hall windows. The glass reflected not only his own figure, but also the corridor behind him. Only this time, there was something else. A face, standing still, staring directly at him, like it knew it had been noticed. The most unsettling part. When he turned around, there was nothing there. The hallway was empty, lit by the same cold light as always. He looked back at the glass, and the face was still there. But now, it was smiling. A slow, mocking smile that didn't match the stillness of the figure. His stomach dropped as if that reflection had crossed the barrier between what is seen and what is felt. He stepped back, but the face didn't move until it vanished, like vapor from the surface of the glass. He stood there, trying to process what he had just seen. That image burned into his mind, carrying a silent warning. Sometimes, what we see isn't a reflection. It's a revelation. And for those who live in the night, every revelation could be just the beginning of something far worse. Now that you've heard each of these accounts, tell me, is it all just imagination? Or is there something in the night that prefers to hide from curious eyes? Think carefully. How many times have you walked down an empty hallway, heard a strange sound, or felt that someone was there, even when you saw no one? And what if, deep down, it wasn't just coincidence? Maybe the next guard to witness something like this will be someone you know. Or maybe it will be you. And when it happens, you'll remember these stories and wonder if you were ever truly alone. So tell me in the comments, which of these stories got under your skin the most? And why? If you want to keep exploring stories that defy logic and dive even deeper into the darker side of everyday life, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Here, every video is another door you can open, but be careful. You won't always like what's on the other side.